Well, hey there, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here, another Wednesday, and the first Wednesday of Black History Month. So happy Black History Month, and February goes by pretty fast. So, but I'm looking to have lots of color in here this month, and talk to voiceover actors and actresses um, that are coming up through the ranks that are people of color. And we have one today, but before I get to that, I want to bring up a few other things. VO Atlanta, you still have time to get your ticket. It's going to be fantastic once again. Happy to be asked to be there once again. And I've got a couple of X sessions. Whoops! The one on Friday is sold out. Sorry about that, but the one on Saturday, last time I looked, there were 4 spaces left. So if you're going to be there and you are interested in voice acting for video games, I suggest you sign up for that now. And by the way, one of the things I've discovered teaching courses of voice acting for video games is that character work improves all your voiceover work. You begin to learn that it is all acting. Even when you're trying to be yourself, it's still acting. And speaking of Black History Month, I've had the honor of having some people tell me from time to time that I'm somebody they looked up to. I'm somebody that they patterned their career after, and was an influence on them. It's humbling to hear that, and also very satisfying to hear that. But I want to share with you some of the people that I looked up to who were my mentors, who didn't know they were my mentors. One, Adolf Caesar. Now, some of you will know Adolf Caesar. You might recognize him from a few of the films he did. This is from a soldier story, which was his most famous. He played this horrible sergeant, but he was a very well-known actor on stage in New York, and he did a lot of voiceover work before many black male voices were doing a lot of voiceover work. Another of my influence, Greg Morse. Most people remember him for being the black tech guy on Mission Impossible back in the 60s. But he also did a lot of voiceover work. And I have the good pleasure of being very good friends with his son and daughter, Phil Morse and Iona Morse, a couple of my better friends. If you lived in California, you might have heard this guy's voice, Percy Rodriguez. Now, Percy was the voice of Pacific Bell here in the 80s. It might have even started in the 70s, but he was the voice of Pacific Bell for many years, and he was a voice you heard on a lot of movie trailers, especially horror movies. Wonderful guy, no longer with us. As a matter of fact, Adolf, Greg, and Percy are no longer here, but one of my big influences is still here, James Earl Jones. As a matter of fact, one of my very first jobs was an imitation of James Earl Jones. Luke, you are my son. My agents, when I first came to Los Angeles, were selling me as a young James Earl Jones. And that job that I did was for the Disney Channel. And I was playing Darth Vader. And the interesting thing, the James Earl Jones voice on Darth Vader, by the way, side note, his AI voice will now be the voice of Darth Vader forever. He signed a deal. They've done the recordings or taken the recordings from him doing Darth Vader. And whenever this movie needs Darth Vader, he'll be the guy. And so money in his pocket, his family's pocket. And that is a way that AI can work for us. That we can do it live, or you can hire my AI voice to do various things. But anyway, James Earl Jones was he was the guy for me when I got started. And on that job at the Disney Channel, when I came into the booth, stepped in there, looked at the script, had the microphone ready. Oh, yeah, I'm ready to go. And the engineer came in and handed me an empty coffee pot. And I said, yeah, well, one, don't want coffee before I work, and there's no coffee in that anyway. And what's up? And he says, put this underneath your chin. And actually should have brought a coffee cup or coffee pot in here. But it was under my chin like this. And you get a little bit of how it sounded. This is a little higher, but you can imagine with the big coffee pot, Luke, you are my son. You got that echo effect that they had on his voice as Darth Vader. Never forget that. And I took his first selfie with him. And I can't find the picture now. It's on Facebook someplace that I posted a number of years ago. And I know it's someplace in the thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures I have on my computer. I'll find it at some point. I'll bring it out again. But I was the booth announcer at the Sovis Awards many years ago. I was a booth announcer at their first and second. And James Earl Jones was being honored. And while he was backstage waiting to go on, I accosted him and said, hi, Mr. James Earl Jones. How are you? So glad to meet you. And, you're a big influence on me. I just love you, man. And can we take a picture? And so sat there and we smiled, took the picture. And he told me, oh, this was his first selfie. So I hope he wasn't lying to me just to make me feel good. But I like to say, yes, I introduced James Earl Jones to selfies. So, a little bit of who influenced me on my way up as I was getting my start. And let's now go to our guest. There he is, Mr. Aaron Nurse. Woo-hoo! How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, real good. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
You're welcome. I'm going to tell the story here. Aaron called me the other day. Every now and then I get a call from Aaron. Years ago, I can't even remember what year it was, but at least a decade. You took a class with me? Is that what
I did. I did take a class with you.
You took a class with me. And ever since that class, every now and then, I'll get a call from Aaron. And actually, matter of fact, over the years, from time to time, we end up in the same place. In the promo I did for this, there was a picture of you and I and a whole line of brothers with dreadlocks. That was the day that it was an on-camera commercial audition, and they wanted every brother in town with a SAG card. And we all showed up at the same time. It's one of the things I hate about auditioning on camera. When you're a star, when you're working, as a matter of fact, you don't have to be a real star, but once you're working, they treat you so much nicer than need be. But when they don't know who you are, when you are trying to make it, oh, your time means nothing. Comfortable. No. Oh, place to change your clothes. Oh, no. You come in, the gorilla suit that you were supposed to be wearing or whatever it is. As soon as you can book it, it's a whole nother world. But I took that picture. It's in there. It's me. You happen to be sitting next to me, and then a whole line of brothers with dreadlocks all the way down. Well, anyway, how are you, man?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I just recorded my second video game spot. Got that under the belt.
Bravo.
Thank you. It's still early. I can't share exactly what it was.
Oh yeah. Well, we've all signed those NDAs. And it's interesting. I was just saying, you called me the other day to say, hey, I just did my second video game, and you were very excited. And every now and then you call for a little advice. And actually, that's I enjoy that. I like getting calls and emails and text messages from former students who are making it happen. And I'm glad you're making it happen. And when I ask you on here, and I have to make an apology to Danielle Gamble. I'm having some problems with my computer scheduler, and she was going to be on, bumped her out. I thought, oh, it was later in the month, but I while you're on the phone, I said, hey man, let's just do this tomorrow. So here you are. Apologies, Danielle. We'll get you back on. Um, how did you get interested in voiceover? What was this journey here?
So I'll try and keep the story short and interesting as possible as I can. So around 2006, 2007 is when I got the acting bug. Um, I started with on camera training. That was my whole thing. Most people would understandably understand that I don't exactly look and sound like a 35-year-old black man. So I had it in my head that only men with deep voices could do voiceover
I've heard that
at the
before.
time. At
Yeah,
the time. So I got, years and years of training of on-camera training. I was posting content on social media. I'd like the record to show I was posting internet sketch comedy before it was a thing, before you could have a career doing that. Very cringy stuff, but I've been doing it since then. And at the time, I had some representation that wasn't suiting me in the way that I felt like we were
you
both
needed to be
gaining
sued.
anything. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I got a call. The gentleman had said, "Hey, I have this Dr. Pepper audition. I would like you to go on. It's on camera. They're looking for men with dreadlocks." For the viewers, I used to have very beautiful dreadlocks. Um,
It's a shame you cut those bad boys off. I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm sorry. It was either be bald or cut them. I had to do it. So the day comes of the audition. I'm late for this audition, mind you. I would like this to also be a testament to sometimes the universe really lines things up for you that you're not really expecting to happen. So I arrive at this audition. I'm late. I'm riddled with anxiety. I enter. I sign it. It's perfect. You can't see the fear, or maybe you can see some of the fear. I sign in. They say, please have a seat on the bench. I sit next to Mr. Fennoy here. I'd like to note that I am a huge gaming nerd to a fault. So I hear Dave talking to these other gentlemen, and I'm like, I know that voice. So I'm opening my phone. I'm like, let me Google to make sure before I engage in this conversation with this guy to make sure it's who I'm thinking it is, and it is. And so I engage in conversation with Dave. Very pleasant. I know most of the time they say you don't want to meet your heroes, but I've been fortunate that Dave is absolutely one of the heroes I'm glad I met because he was so polite. He was engaging in conversation with me. And basically, I had told him, this on camera thing isn't going the way I thought it would be at this point, and that this was probably going to be my last audition before I reevaluate how I wanted to navigate the entertainment industry. And I don't remember exactly what you said, Dave, but you said something to the point of like, "Well, you have an interesting voice. Have you considered taking on voiceover acting?" And I was in my head at the time, I was like, "Well, I mean, like I don't have a deep voice, so there's no work for me, right? Like it's either males with deep voice or women taking on, teenage male, teenage boy characters." And you said, "Well, that's not the case." And you gave me resources, you gave me your email, you told me, "I want you to get some training." Shout out to the voice caster. It's where I got my start, where I got my demo done. And you told me, after you get your training, after you get your demo, I want you to reach out to me. And I said, okay. So a year or two goes by. I've been getting training, been getting my demo. I contact you and I'm like, I'm trying to get an agent. Like, what do I do? And you're just offering me all these valuable, priceless nuggets of information. And I end up getting my startup agency. Um, I'm no longer with them, but it was a great experience as far as
Who was that
getting my
startup
feet.
agent?
I started with commercial talent.
Okay.
I was with Nathan Higgins and Arlene Glucksman. She's no longer with them.
Yeah, they've been around a
Um,
long time.
oh yeah, oh yeah. They saw something in me, and I can never thank them enough. So I got started with commercial talent, got my feet wet, started auditioning with them. They would, redirect me, tell me what I was doing right, tell me what I was doing wrong. Uh, some time passed. I quite wasn't getting the auditions and the roles I felt I was suited for. So I did have to move on, unfortunately. Some time passed. I ended up connecting with my management company, Cope Management. Shout out to Cope Management, who we share. I started working with Cope Management, started booking some roles. The team at Cope absolutely understood what
Who
I was
you?
after,
Yeah,
who I
and
was.
who you are as a voice actor.
Yes, absolutely. It took some time. But they understood my voice print, my voice type, what other voice prints I could dip my toes into. And once they figured that out, I just started booking jobs left and right. Um,
And you are now with my age. You've just been following me.
it's
You
all full
got
circle.
my
It's all full
manager and you
circle.
got my agent too.
Yes, yes. I It came time to look for a new agency. I had an in that wanted to connect me with CESD, who Dave and I are with. We had a meeting. The chemistry was there, and the rest is history. Like it all fell into place, and it just again a testament to sometimes the universe just sets you up with exactly what you need. Because what are the chances that the man that put me on this path, I now share an agency and a management company with, like that.
And I knew this sort of course, in the back of my mind. Oh, yeah, he's with the same age. You are telling the story like this. Well, oh wow, wow. I forgot. I just remember meeting you and taking that picture because they had all these brothers with dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was so wonderful. I didn't know I'd given you all that much information. But hey, um, I'm glad that's how I showed up in the world to you, and that's how I always hope to show up in the world. Looking at your bio, um, clearly you weren't a kid, a young man who was sitting around watching television or just playing video games. Um, Comedian? Tell me about your
Yeah.
comedic journey.
So I feel weird saying that people think I'm funny. I feel like that's a weird thing to say out loud. But in school, I was always class clown, to a fault. Like I would get detention because I just wanted to make people laugh instead instead of doing homework and such. So as I got older, that part of me never changed. So I felt like maybe I can add this to my journey. Like why do I feel the need to make people laugh and smile? Like what is it about that I'm drawn to? And it just so happened, again, touching on the universe lining things up. I had a friend that had been pursuing stand-up comedy for many years, and he and I connected via social media. And he said, I'm gonna take you to some open mics. We're gonna see what do we have here. And I he took me to my first open mic. It went pretty good. I did stand up for many years. I can comfortably say I never bombed. There were some nights that weren't as good as others, but I was never booed or had crickets in the audience. Um, so
So
my time
do you ever
doing
think you'll uh, go back to doing more stand up,
I
or how are you letting the funny that you need to get out?
so the funny flame within me, I'm heavily involved in social media content. I love to create funny videos, skits, songs. That's my primary outlet for producing what I feel is comedic content.
Yeah. What's
Um,
your where could somebody find your comedic content?
I'm on all the social medias
Just
at
under Aaron
Aaron
Nurse,
J Nurse. Aaron J Nurse.
Aaron J Nurse. Okay.
Um, I videos, videos, picture, photo, meme content, all that stuff.
Okay. Now, see, whenever I meet a comedian, I always do the horrible thing you shouldn't do. Say something funny, make me laugh. So, what's a joke that you wrote that you know never fails?
Okay, that never fails. Okay, might ruffle some feathers. Uh, I can't relate to it, but the words are what they are. What do you call a black man with good credit? Nobody knows.
Oh, see, that's so Black History Month, man. Don't go there. Oh,
Hey,
Black History Month.
I have fantastic credit, but that joke never fails.
Yeah, I had a cousin back in the day. He's no longer with us. He was my favorite cousin, and he was a music record promoter. You remember records when people had to go out and.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But
I'm in that
he
phase.
once when I was living here and had started doing very well in voiceover, um, I was going to buy a car and he went with me. He said, "Man, you got white man credit." Come on, man, don't say that. Don't say the stereotypes. Sometimes we have to live those stereotypes down. But also a beatboxer.
Yeah, yeah. That was just
That's so 80s and 90s.
exactly. I knew very early on I I felt a draw to the entertainment industry. So it was very hard for me to focus in school, especially during subjects that were either uninteresting or I knew were not going to serve me in the real world. Um, so with that on top of dabbling in the entertainment industry, being stuck in traffic, what do people like us do? We talk to ourselves. We work on our voices. Or one of the things I do is beatbox. Just try and I was always drawn to it, especially being involved
Okay,
with
okay,
music.
okay. Enough talking about it. Let me hear some beatbox.
Okay, okay, look, I'll give you a little.
Putting
Okay,
him on the spot.
um,
Oh boy.
how's that?
Now that was fantastic. If I could spit a verse, I would have spit a verse on that. Nicely done. Nicely done. So
Thank you, thank you.
uh, we were talking about you are a dancer.
Yeah, I was introduced to one of my biggest dance and music related inspirations. Michael Jackson. I'm obsessed. I'm an obsessed Michael Jackson fan. I was introduced at a very, very, very early age to the Motown 25, the legendary
Oh boy,
first moonwalk
moonwalked.
performance.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that was like to witness live for the first time ever. But when I saw it, I was so mesmerized, and I remember I had like some, you get the your mom takes you to a local photo shop and she dresses you up in some outfit you would never ever wear outside of that photo shoot. And I remember just my mom put me in some loafers and I was like, oh, these are the shoes that Michael Jackson wears. And so I would just run around the house
No,
just
that's
trying to dance.
interesting.
And
That the Michael Jackson loafers. I always thought these are the most uncool shoes in the world, but he made
they
them cool.
are, but he made them cool. Exactly, they're the most grandfather shoes like
Yeah,
humanly possible.
in his high water
um
pants and one glove.
and that's a testament to how magical he was. But after I saw that, I became obsessed with dancing, music. I just wanted to get up and move. Also during high school, I was an avid break dancer. I'm a 35-year-old. As of yesterday, I am a 35-year-old black man. I can no longer break dance. I'm too old for such activities.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you hit that age where it's just step, step,
Exactly, exactly. I have to
step.
wake up and stretch every day, or I'm
You
going to
can
be in
do
pain.
things with your arms and some head bobbing, but go too far and you might hurt something.
Exactly. So once I realized my breakdancing career was over, I just wanted to just keep myself moving and retain my flexibility and my mobility. I love music. I love emulating Michael Jackson. I even my first role when I signed with CEST, my very first booked role, I was supposed to be on Jimmy Kimmel. They were looking for a voice match for Michael Jackson. I remember getting that email
Uh,
and I was like, this
uh,
is mine.
oh,
I knew that that role was mine. I auditioned for it. They called me immediately. They said, we need you to come in right now. And I remember I got there. I was talking to the producer. She was like, it was between you and a Michael Jackson impersonator. So I beat out an impersonator. So I know that my love for Michael Jackson runs within the depths of my soul.
so did you also a moonwalk for
She did tell me she was creeping on my social media and saw that I was a good dancer,
him?
but it wasn't needed for what the particular job was. Um, but you know, with live talk shows, they write and cut things left and right. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to provide what I was hired for, but the fact that I was able to audition for something like that and land the job over somebody that does it,
Yeah.
you know, regularly or professionally, that was an
Those
achievement
gigs are
for
funny.
me.
Sometimes you'll get the job on a Kimmel or late night show, and you'll record it, they'll produce it, and then not run it.
Oh,
I've had that happen doing some things over there. A juggler.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
just start juggling when you were a kid, or
I did in middle school. I uh, it's a terrible story. I saw this clown juggling, and I remember I told one of my friends. I said I could do that, and he said no, you can't. And so I remember I bought like a pair, like a 3 pack of tennis balls, and I was in my room
that's how they come?
juggling. Exactly, yes, juggling for hours trying to master this. And then I remember going to school a couple days later and I was like, look, see, remember I told you that I was going to be able to do this? And I was able to do that. And everybody was so visually like perplexed that I was able to do that. I was like, oh, this, okay, so this is like a thing. So I became obsessed with it. And I kept practicing. I started incorporating other instruments of juggling into the routine. Uh,
Chainsaw, butcher knife. No.
I can juggle knives and I have juggled torches, not chainsaws. I had a teacher, my seventh grade teacher. He was a juggler in his youth at the Renaissance fairs, so he enabled me.
So yeah. So
And
basically, Aaron, what you're telling me, you got a lot of nerd in you.
oh God, I mean, look behind me. Look at all this. Look at all this in my Mega Man
Oh
bow
yeah,
tie. Yes, nerd to
and,
a fault.
and a filmmaker.
And a filmmaker. I uh chasing the acting bug from high school of making these online skits. Um, I moved around a little bit. You know, I've lived in California most of my life. I did move to Miami temporarily to live with my father and that side of my family. I went to film school. I did short films, student films, wrote, direct, starred in, edited, composed the music for. I've known for a very long time that I was destined to be involved in entertainment in some capacity. Um, so yeah, I mean, just yeah.
You know,
Some. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say let's move on into. I mean, I was just amazed looking at your resume, all the things that you have done and touched on. Um, but now, your career is voiceover. This is the work that you do. How long would you say from finding out about it till now? About 10 years.
So we that when we met 2014, training off and on for about 2 years. I consider 2016 to be when I really hit the ground that's when I booked my first job, knew that this was something for me, which was also the year my daughter was born. So I that's kind of how I mark my start of my voiceover journey.
And now, so you've learned now that you don't have to have a deep voice to do voiceover. What kind of jobs, the kind of jobs that you get? What do the specs say? How do they describe your voice? How does your agent describe your voice?
Well, okay, I'm glad you asked that. So I dabble in a few different voice prints than my own. Um, I have been lucky to book a few jobs in the range of something similar to my speaking voice. I have booked work using deeper voices. I have booked work using higher pitched voices. My very first voiceover job was for Leapfrog, the toys, and that was very much me using like a childlike voice. Um, but something like I've the work I've done for BET, the work I've done for Disney, I was using a lower octave voice. So part of what I bring to the table is versatility. I might sound like one thing, when I speak to you, but like I can bring it down, sound like a brother when I need to. I can change it around
You know, it's interesting.
whatever the role is
I can
necessary.
sound like a brother when I need to. Uh, and I mention it like that when you said that, uh, because I always, if you're a brother, you sound like a brother, no matter what you sound like. I believe. And it gets into the stereotypes, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Uh, Being Black History Month, um, I know early on in my career, with my agents, I said, "Look, I'm happy to do all the ethnic work in the world, but I don't want you to sell me as just an ethnic voice. I'm a general market. I want to speak to everyone." Um, I can think of the number of jobs I had over the years where I would have a white director say, "Can you make it blacker?" Or "Can you make it more urban?" Um, which for me, I don't think is that specific. One of the things I finally started saying, and not with rancor, because I think we've all been poisoned with the disease of racism. We've all been affected. I'd say, look, you say you want me to make it blacker. Would you ever ask a white actor to make it whiter? No. You would be more specific with what you're looking for. I can give you a wide variety of black people, college professor to cotton picker that didn't get through third grade. But be more specific. What area of the country are you talking about? How old? What level of
Right.
education? What's their worldview? That those are the kinds of things we need. What kind of experiences have you had being directed that made you go, that's not quite what I need?
Um. So I agree with everything you said. Um. But going through, I suppose my grade school experience, and I grew up in the suburbs. Um. People made it a point to never, whether it be um the brothers and sisters or everybody else, I was never allowed to forget that I don't sound like your typical black male.
What we consider a typical
Right,
black.
exactly. I was never allowed to forget that. I've had I'm okay with it. I was never bullied, but I was never allowed to forget it, especially on top of being nerdy. I was a skateboarder. I was in marching band. All of these things were just held against
Suburban.
my blackness.
Suburban.
Exactly. Exactly. So, there have been a handful of times where I might be hired for something where the specs have been, looking for African American, black, et cetera, et cetera. We get into the session. I'm speaking in, I'll audition to a very particular, I like to audition very particular into the specs. There have been a handful of times where I will get hired based on my audition, of course, and then we get into the session and they're thrown because I'm speaking the way I'm speaking to you right now. But then I got hired off of lowering my voice register, adding a smooth chocolatey twang to how I deliver the lines.
You can't
This
call
happens.
smooth and chocolatey twang. You can't. Those three words don't go together. Get the tang out of there. Get the tang. The twang out of there.
um, and and then so jumping in and out of the voice, there have been some uncomfortable situations where they can't wrap their head around, okay, we hired you based on this, what you sent, but then you don't speak like this. And like it's we got through it, of course, but there have been a couple of very uncomfortable positions where I was made to feel like I'm a black man performing what you hired me for, but when we're not recording it, like, it makes you uncomfortable because I don't sound like that naturally. So
Well, you know what?
it's
I think it's interesting. Nowadays, if you're talking video games and cartoons and so forth, it's expected that you're going to be able to do a number of different voices, different ranges, different accents. Uh, but the mythology of commercials right now is that you're just your authentic voice, that you're
right,
just professional voice. This is really who they are. And the truth of the matter is, we're all acting. And yes, we want authenticity, um, but authenticity doesn't mean necessarily that this is who you are all the time. If you can create that image that is believable, which is what we want. I tell my students all the time, I don't care if it sounds good. Question to ask is, do you believe it? That's
right.
what we're going for. Uh, yeah, it's interesting. That's interesting. I know a lot of black actors have gone through that, um, but at the same time, I think over the years, over my career, I believe that what we consider the American voice has changed, and it's much more inclusive of a lot of different kinds of voices that also are not just black, but Asian and Latino, male and female. Um, and we are hearing a lot of international voices, various UK accents and English and Australian and French and Italian and Indian voices that are melding in. Anyway, let's get to some questions here. I think we had some good ones. Theo Mezzacapo, hey Dave, hey Aaron. Question for Aaron: how do you feel doing stand up as has transferred over to voice acting? Has it helped you stand up something? Stand up is something I've considered doing for years, and a lot of family and friends have tried pushing me into it.
Um, okay, okay. Great question. Thank you. I would say so. What is going to be a very important factor in that journey is your style of comedy. Um, if you are not authentic to what you are on stage telling, it will be very obvious. When I do stand up, I like self deprecation. I like to talk about myself, make fun of myself, my unique experiences. Um, it would not be authentic of me to speak on, for example, your I can't really speak on, the average black male experience in America growing up in the suburbs. Most of my friends were of a variety of people. So I figure the best way to be my authentic self on stage is to talk about what I know, what my experiences are. So I would heavily advise you to speak from experience. What have you been through? What have you gone through that people can connect with, and how can you turn that into something comedic?
Speaking
Cuz
of comedy, those for me are the comedians I relate to the most: a Chris Rock, a Dave Chappelle, a Bill Burr, um, even a Seinfeld. Now, some very different comedians there, but they're speaking a truth. It's really in their voice, and it's one of the things. I mean, as we're looking at who we all are, but you and I looking at who we are as Black Americans now, um, the stereotype has had to expand. We are not who uh, people used to try to make us feel like we were. And I think sometimes we've fallen prey to the stereotype and tried to be this thing that we're not. I know in the culture sometimes we joke, and white folks, you're going to learn a little something here. That sometimes we'll say things like, "Oh, you're doing that, you're speaking like that, you're eating that. We're taking away your black card. I'm sorry, you ain't a brother no more." Um, we say it jokingly, but there's some seriousness to how that related in the past. Um, I remember the years they were talking about Ebonics, and I think there's a reason that black people, that we often speak in a way that our white counterparts are not, is not wanting to be associated uh, with the oppressor. But as time has gone on, and more people of color have moved into suburbs and have a different educational level. I grew up in the hood, but in seventh grade, my parents sent me to a private school. I went to a private boys' school. I was going to school with real, not just suburban, but rich suburban kids. And it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Uh, Fortunately, they armed me as a kid that, you're as good as anybody else. You're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as much. But you go in there and you show them what you can do. And I think sometimes people are afraid of one another, not necessarily afraid for their lives, but afraid, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing. I don't know how to show up in this environment. I'm going to be silly. I don't know their music. I don't dress like this. Whatever it is, and that's going in all the directions, not just black to white or white to black. But the more we associate with one another, the more we blend, we mix, we understand, and of course, music is one of those things. Theater is one of those things. Television and movies, and more. We are integrating there. I don't think we would have had a Barack Obama if we wouldn't have had a black president in 24, if we wouldn't have had Morgan Freeman playing president. Hopefully, we'll have another black president and we won't get this Nazi, wannabe Nazi back in. But anyway, enough of that. Let me jump into another question. Oh no, that was one we just did. Oh no, that wasn't one we just did, but that is one I wanted to show. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry about that. I took you out of there. Didn't mean to take you out. Mike Cunningham, Dave spitting a verse would have sounded like a collegiate classical literature professor rapping about Shakespeare with the late 80s Big Daddy Kane kind of flow. That's funny. That's funny. All right. Um, Nevin Stoltz. I went dancing the other weekend and just cannot move like I used to back in the day. Getting old sucks. Nevin,
Can't relate.
you ain't. Let's see. Uh, Aaron, learning talents out of spite is 100% my life energy. You know, that is interesting. Oh, you said I can't juggle. I'm going to juggle. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, that's an interesting thing. One of the reasons I think I became successful in voiceover is because a program director, when I was trying to break into radio, told me that you're not going to be successful. There's something wrong with your voice, and I was like, "Oh, this MF, I'll show him." And it just carried over into voiceover as we were going along. Let's see. I think Terry had to leave us. Got to roll. You're an interesting dude, Aaron. Continued success to you. Have a good night, everyone. Oh, Terry
Thank you, Terry.
Briscoe had to go. Um, all right. Cecil Archibald Jr. That's a great Archibald. It's not Archibald. Archibald. I was in a session once where the client was struggling to give me a direction. She finally used the word more urban. I chuckled a bit to let her off the hook and make her feel more comfortable. Um, you know, the situation we have in America with the levels of racism, I'm just going to say I think we all are racist, all of us, uh, present company included, but I don't think we all want to be. I think there are those who embrace the negative feelings that may come up for them about this group, that group, or the other group. I think because we've all been breathing in the air, it's in the milieu of the ether, if it were. Uh, I think we all end up with some racist ideas, some things that we shouldn't have, that aren't positive, that aren't true about one another. Um, and sometimes a thought will go by. I know sometimes I'll be driving and person of this particular persuasion driving their car too slow, too fast, whatever it is, and there's a little thought to go through your mind. Oh, that. But you can catch yourself, and I catch myself, and I go, you know what? That's not who I want to be. I just because these thoughts went through doesn't mean I have to marry them, hang on to them, make them mine. Um, and I think it's going to be a while. There are lots of us um, who make mistakes all the time. You know, I can think of the number of times white people have said something to me that was insensitive out of just not knowing that maybe is racially insensitive. My tendency is to give you a pass. I might point it out to you so that you don't do it to somebody else. But my tendency is not to feel like everything like that is out of malice. Sometimes we just don't know. And how do I know? Because I've done the same thing with somebody else in some other culture that I just didn't know. If we're open to understanding each other, and there's a lot of each other's we have to understand, um, just realize you're not going to know everything about every culture. Be willing to learn. Be open to the criticism when it happens. And when you have someone to criticize, criticize with love in your heart as opposed to anger. Let's see, got another Jay Horace Black. Hey, Dave and Aaron. I may be dating myself. I saw the Jackson 5 when O was a younger. Also have had a direction. Can you do? Also have had the direction. Can you do more? Like you're talking to your friends on the street. What makes you think I got friends on the street? It's that kind of thing. It's that kind of thing. Uh, interesting. All right, Richard Sukdeo. Question: I'm studying getting my degree in theaters. It's still necessary if I want to pursue my career in voiceover. Good question. Why don't you take that one?
I would say so. Okay, in my opinion, if you have the studious capacity to obtain a degree, I would recommend it. I myself, I did some college. I do not have a degree. I tried it. It was not for me. After high school, I I'm not against the academics education system. I do not feel it is set up for everyone to thrive. If you can get through it to obtain a degree, I do recommend it. But I do not think it is an absolute necessity if you have the mm, how do I navigate this, Dave?
The
Like if you
drive,
have the
talent.
talent and the skill and the drive, the talent, the skill, and the drive to accomplish what you are after, um, again, even in the day jobs I've worked alongside people that have had degrees, and that I have now moved on to accomplish my dream as a voice actor, and some of these people are still at that job, just grinding away, just you know
Yeah.
the classic, the mill, the grind, the
Well,
daily routine.
not everything is for everybody. And
Right.
by the same token, I don't want to disrespect somebody who's doing a job that I would never want to do. But to them, they're enjoying it. They may like it. I can't say all the ditch diggers like digging ditches, but I have met truck drivers who love what they do. Bus drivers, mailmen, people. As I used to have a friend say, those people with regular jobs, gosh, when I was going to private school, that they love what they do, and not and work for everybody isn't always about your artistic fulfillment. It's about supporting the people you love and yourself. Um, you mentioned something there in your answer. Talent is one thing, skill is something else. And going to university for acting, for theater, uh, can be great. Um, but some schools, some teachers are going to be better than others. Uh, but be careful when you're that person that doesn't go to school, but you have talent. Be careful where you find, uh, choose to learn your skill. There's some places that can really help you, uh, but you're going to have to marry that talent with the skills needed. Talent in and of itself isn't going to get you there. There are people who haven't had a whole lot of training, that the empathy within them, um, they were able to learn, or they're in a position of notoriety. I think about some of the rappers who have turned rapping into an acting career, comedians who have turned comedy into an acting career. Um, Most of them, I think, have done some studying that we don't know about. And one of the things I think is true of that, if you have a Kevin Hart, if you have an Ice Cube, there's a persona they created doing their comedy as a rapper, that they've brought that persona to the jobs they do as actors. And one of the reasons we have so many celebrities doing commercials now is because they have a persona that we are attracted to, that we are familiar with, that we trust. They know their brand, and they bring their brand. And there's not that we can't do a variety of things, but you got to know your brand. There's going to be a circle of things. You make it a square, whatever. It's a shape of things of a certain size that you can do. When you start trying to get too far out of that, and I'm not saying don't stretch, don't try to learn more, but when you get too far outside of that, now things you may not be as strong as somebody else who is more that. And I think that's one of the things that happens when we're talking about casting now, uh, that's more specific to racial groups. Uh, if you're a white guy who can do a black voice, that's one thing. But if you're black, and the most important thing for me is this is show business, and we want to give everybody a chance. And all too often, as you look back, I'm old enough to remember uh, John Wayne as Genghis Khan. Uh, White actors, and some things we still have. When are we going to start having movies about Egyptians and the Egyptians are black people? Egypt is in Africa. The ancient Egyptians were black. Anyway, let's see. Get another question up here. Grace Newton, if I may, acting training of any kind is necessary to be a better actor, voice or otherwise. Best of luck, Richard. Uh, that wasn't to either of us, but Grace, you spoke truth. Um,
I
Jay
agree with
Morris
that.
Black once again. Um, did a live narration last week for Black History Month where in the copy it said dinner made by people of color. Tactfully got the client to reword it. Well, and the language, and we're not just talking voiceover here. The language that we use, that we change, and I remember uh, when I came along, we were Negroes. Before that, we had been colored. Uh, then we came Afro Americans, African Americans, and finally black. I prefer black. I know a lot of people say, call me an African American. I just say I'm black. You're white, I'm black. You're Asian, you're this, you're that, you're the other.
Same.
Um, but often the language um, has to change because the meaning behind it is tainted. Colored, Negroes, the meaning behind it was tainted. I'm always amazed too. Say a white person is talking about a black person, describing this one. Well, she's black, and it's almost like they're embarrassed to say it. Sometimes I'm not accusing everybody, my white friends and fans and whatnot. Uh, but I bet you've seen it. I bet you've heard it. It's just a description. He's a black dude. Oh, it's an Asian guy. He's Latino. It's just a description. And when you're whispering or a little hesitant to say, it's just showing off the poison, the racist poison in us, that we feel like I have to be careful saying this, that I don't want to be judged, or I don't want that person to know that I know that they're black, or that, my favorite, I don't see color.
Classic.
Yes, you do. And there's nothing wrong with you seeing color. We come in all shapes and sizes. We're tall, we're short, we're black, we're white, we're Asian, we're Latin, we're this, we're that. It's just a description. Now, how you feel about those people, that's a whole other thing. Black History Month. Oh, my buddy Logan Williams. Man, good to see you here. Logan, Wednesday night, Ask Dave Know Anything, the place to be. Big what's up to everyone in attendance, Dave and Aaron. Thanks for sharing. Oh man, Logan, I thought you were gonna spit some wisdom, because I know you got it. Oh, Logan, real good buddy of mine's from Boston. Got a big deep voice, and wow, just good to see my peeps. So, if you were doing this all again, what would you suggest for people trying to get into voiceover, or somebody like yourself? It's kind of like me. I grew up in the hood, but I went to private school. Um, Do you ever have doubts about, yourself as a black guy because of growing up in the suburbs? Not that you should,
So,
but
okay, so I would say a couple of parts to that answer. So for the major thing, I would say for anyone of any shade that might be similar to where I'm at or the way I grew up, there is work for us. Don't feel like we have no room in this industry. There might be more or less depending on your talent or skill, as we covered. There is room for us. There is work for us. Do not feel like you cannot do this. Um, and for anyone sort of in my situation, black man growing up in the suburbs, depending on your age, you have the resources are there for you. I grew up in a time where social media wasn't a thing. Internet was not a thing. So I had to kind of just deal with this as a day-to-day thing in grade school, being told whatever I was told, take it however I was, to take it. But I would say you are now in an era of a much more accepting society to where you can kind of ebb and flow through this industry. Even just life, if you decide to get out of entertainment, you are in a much better position to just be accepted as who you are than we were in the past. I grew up in the 90s, different time, but now there's just so much more available to you. There's so much more acceptance to you. If you're in the entertainment industry, there are so much more jobs available. There are so many more opportunities available. There are so many more specs that kind of allow for a broader range of people of color. I can't tell you how many times I've auditioned for things where it's like, oh, looking for, person of color. Sometimes there's preference. Sometimes they say we want a black person, or we're open to this, we're open to that, we're open to non-binary, etc.
well, we see that all the time now.
Absolutely. That's every nearly every audition I get is now open to non-binary people, which is great. I feel so anyone that might feel like there's not work for me out there, I promise you there is. You just need to stick with it. If you feel you are truly born to do anything in the entertainment industry, you just need to find your niche,
Yeah.
or you might need to just broaden your spectrum, continue your training. There's so much more available to us
I,
now than
I think
ever
that I
before.
think the door is much wider open to a wider variety of different kinds of whoever you are. Um, Different people from different backgrounds at every level of society we are now seeing on television, and I think one of the best places are commercials. Uh, we see every kind of person on commercials, and that's a good thing. And I like to think that the advertising industry, the entertainment industry, although not perfect, is leading the way. And yeah, we have backlash. Uh, we have a Trump because there's backlash, because some people don't want to see black, Latino, Asian, uh, gay, trans, uh, whoever you are, uh, showing up, being seen. But this is the direction we're going in. Hey, listen, Aaron, man, I'm glad you called me the other day, just to put in a report on your
Of
success.
course, of course. I'm where
Uh,
I'm at because of you. I
oh,
appreciate you.
well, thank you. I'm glad to have a little piece of part in your success, but you're where you are because of you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I'm gonna let you go. All the best to the wife and your 7-year-old girl, and don't forget, I got a 10-year-old grandson. He's out there in New York, but he's a good-looking kid. When she's of age,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Aaron Nurse, ladies and gentlemen. So good to talk to him. I've watched his career grow from, gee, I'd like to do this thing, know nothing about it, to, hey, he's got the same manager and agent I do and is booking all the time. It can be done. All the best, and I will see you next week. In the meantime and in between time, book something.